Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Such a high honor to be on the west side of Tucson here. It's bloody hot, triple digits all week, but get a chance today to reconnect with a guy who is really a musical healer. He's really found his own way and finding the ability to cut above the morass of all the other cats who are playing this kind of music, blues music. And he is a local legend, also somebody who has international following as well. Tom Walbank, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Good to see you again, man.
Hey, man. You know, I wanted you to talk about, if you would, ultimately you go back to this time when you were doing illustration and you also had this calling for music. And I just wanted you to talk about when you wanted to go play, you were horny to play music again. Where were you at in terms of like your song bag? How did you just throw yourself over the edge at that point because music was such a calling for you, even though you weren't necessarily totally ready for the stage at that point?
Are you talking about when I first started playing music?
when we just talked about the idea, yeah. Well, no, I'm talking more about the that crossroads between you could have done the illustration thing, gone to London,
gotcha. Yeah,
or you wanted to play music more, but yet. Maybe where were you at? Where were you still growing as a musician at that point?
Oh man, I'm still growing now.
Absolutely. I mean, like the point is, you weren't like you didn't know if you could make that either, but somehow that felt more inclusive than the illustration.
Yeah, I just needed it more. I got to a stage. I was 20 years old. I was super young, but at that time. I'd already got to a point where, with my art, it's like I was coming up against roadblock for the one job I wanted. And maybe that was a blessing, you know what I mean? Because by the time I kind of switched to music, I got interested in different forms of art anyway. And it took me another 35 years to get back to comic books. Which is another story.
We will get into that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like sculpture, different kinds of art.
No. I mean, same thing.
Yeah.
Illustration.
Okay.
Just doubling down on the styles I liked. Very much in the way I do with blues. It's like I've got my guys, my heroes, and I'm a combination of them, like they were of the heroes. Muddy Waters would be the first one to tell you his influences. Robert Johnson, Son House, Robert Nighthawk. You just got to ask these guys.
From the grave.
I mean, they have their styles, but yeah, I'd started playing out. I was just a harmonica player back then. That was my main thing. But I was like, yeah, I want to be a musician. So I made a conscious decision. Okay, then I'll start doing portraits of blues players, and that would keep both my loves together. So I did a book called Picture the Blues a few years ago, and it had like hundreds of portraits of blues players. So that's what kept both things in play.
Early on, were you literally on like playing harp and painting at the same time, like in a setting with a tip jar? Like, I'm curious about that original fusion. Yeah, like how did that?
Sitting in with other bands.
You were sitting in with other bands.
Harp play,
So talk about a seminal. Because what's amazing is that everybody begs, borrows, and steals from their influences. And then you ultimately go off and try to find your own voice. But I'd love you to talk because it's the guys like Son House, Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf. Lightning Hopkins, all these cats. It's a lot of it is it's a deep bag of tunes. Like, sure. And I'm curious about like where you feel like you developed your bag of tunes. I know it happened in a lot of different places, but you started out on harmonica. How was there a band that you were in where they just call out tunes and you just kind of had to figure it out, and and then ultimately you were able to put that in your satchel and
Well, I think as a blues player, I was sitting in with a lot of bands that weren't playing blues. They were playing pop. They were, it's Edinburgh. It's around the time of the Waterboys. There's this Celtic thing, but like mixing in Americana.
Dig.
Before Americana was a thing.
Wow. So we're talking like
early 90s.
Yeah.
The Whole of the Moon. There's a band called the Lost Soul Boys, which was the Lost Soul Band, which is they were just taking off in Edinburgh at the time, and I was sitting in with them, and all kinds of different bands, because I was working in the bars. So if there was a band playing I liked, I would like take a break, run down the back stairs to where the venue was, and get up on stage. I did that with
Oh, that is so freaking awesome.
But then one day I got a shout from the other bartenders, like, man, there's a duo downstairs, and the one guy's singing like Ray Charles and Tom Waits, and the other guy's playing mean blues guitar. Man, you should sit in with them. There's a band called 3220, which is an old Robert Johnson song. It's a gun frame from back in the 30s. But and I went down and I hooked up with them, and I ended up playing in France and going.
Who are those cats?
Lee Mottram, he's not in music anymore, but wonderful singer, wonderful performer. And Dave Dixon, who is, he has a band with his wife called the Dana Dixon Band, and she's a very good harmonica player and singer. And they have a band, all the cats from the legitimate blues guys from the States, James Harmon, or Lazy Lester, they go over to Europe, they're looking for a good pickup band who knows their shit. So they'd give Dave a call, so I'd be on. He came out, Lazy Lester, he played El Casino Ballroom, and I opened up for him there, and I've been doing Sugar Coated Love in my set for a long time.
You went. I want to talk about that. That was your first touring experience with them.
Yeah.
What was that? Can you, thinking back to that time, can you talk about what you learned the most as far as, I guess I would say leadership more than anything else. I mean, I can't imagine you guys, it wasn't like this, was it a bluesy tour?
Yeah. I mean, I was with this trio, which was 3220, guitar, harp, and vocals, and that's what I dug.
Yeah.
But we got like upright bass player, drummer.
It was a bigger band.
Yeah, it was a bigger band. Saxophone.
Yeah.
It was,
Dude, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and but it also opened up to me. It's like, okay, if you want to play the specific music you want to play, you've got to be the singer, the band leader. You've got to do it all. It's got to be you. So
how did that dawn on you? That's an interesting statement. You didn't want to. The accompanist part of it wasn't going to cut it. You wanted to. You personally were driven to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I had an amazing time. I was the harp player in this band, and that was my job. And I loved all these guys, and they were all. The upright bass player was a jazz cat, and he was just a wonderful guy. And they were all.
Sure.
And I had a wonderful time. It was down in Antibes, and Cannes and Nice, and down there we were playing.
Nice, I did it. Like, gravy.
Yeah,
gravy.
Yeah. And it was riches. We stopped off in Antibes to our first venue, which we were playing for a week, which was a subterranean bar. We pulled up, and we had a Scottish postal van from the 60s, which was like this blue square,
so sick.
Aerodynamic as a
so
brick.
Sick, yeah.
We were traveling down through France. I'm in the back with all the gear, because that was where the room was, and so I've got all these upright basses falling on me, and I'm sitting in the back going, I'm trying to work out Sonny Terry stuff, and they're looking back through the little window and going, Tom's lost it, man. The heat's got to him.
Yeah, right.
But we got there. And we park our car. And Antibes is like where they look down their noses on Nice and Cannes.
That's
because it's like they've got stupid money.
Right.
The people who go to Antibes, they park the mega yachts. So this clunky, fabulous Freak Brothers looking van pulls into town. The police know about it. And it's not just the police, it's the police, the secret police, you know, like hippie van rolls into this. So we get out the van and immediately I'm pushed up against the van with a gun in the back of my head.
No way.
Yeah. All the guys were up against the van in a heartbeat. Then they look in the van, these guys, you know, flak vests and shit, guns. And they go, "Oh, you're musicians. Why didn't you tell us?" Blah blah. And I'm like, "Fucking hell."
What the hell do you think? I mean,
it's like, yeah, you work for the rich people, you're okay. If you're just stupid hippies who took a wrong turn, you're gonna chuck you out super quick.
You're like, yo, we actually have a gig booked right there, you know?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, but Antibes, it's like there's a legit jazz festival there every year.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Nice used to. I mean,
Herbie Hancock and everyone.
I mean, George Porter used to go there, and Dizzy Gillespie back in the early '70s. It was just an incredible.
Yeah.
I guess my feeling is, I guess I've never asked you this, but why is blues a why? Simply put, why did you come to the United States? Only because the reason I ask you that is because the appreciation for blues and jazz is fundamentally great. I mean, you can sing for your supper over there. Was it more the idea of saying, well, I'm going to go here and see what the tell me about the impetus to come to the States.
Love.
Well, there you go.
I got married to an American girl
So you met your wife
in Scotland.
quite a while ago.
Oh, 28 years ago.
Mazel.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Okay, well there you go. So at that point, it was like, I would love you to talk about coming here, and you guys came directly to Tucson.
No, we were in. She's from She's from California, Central Coast.
Oh,
San
beautiful,
Luis Obispo.
beautiful. My favorite area.
And we moved up to San Francisco.
Oh my gosh, where were you? I need to know some of these gigs you were. You must have been just walking into. I need to. This is so. You were playing blues. Now at that point, we're jumping around here, but again, let's go back for a minute. When did you start coming up with your own style of guitar picking?
Oh, damn. When I moved to the States, I'd only just bought a guitar.
Yeah.
So I was, I'd found out about open G tuning, which is a tuning all the Delta guys played in.
Sure.
You know, there was open D, there was open G, not too much standard tuning.
You want to play a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, you notice on my guitar, only 5 strings. That's because in open G tuning, the heaviest string is the D. It's DG, DG, BD. The heaviest string being the D, you don't need that.
Yeah.
You need the heaviest string to be a G, so you just take it off. So, but that's a G.
Yeah.
You know, you just strum. Whereas in regular tuning, you have to make a shape to, you can't just like.
Right.
That was playing one hand. I could be drinking a cup of coffee.
And that's only because of the open tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like. But that stuff is all, it's 3 chords, but it's not.
So you had just bought a guitar. You're living where? Tenderloin? Where are you guys living at?
Out to Mission.
Oh, dude, this is so. It's one of my favorite. Still one of my favorite cities in the country.
Yeah. The Samoan district.
So please. So you consider yourself a complete. This is what I want you to talk about the younger cats. You made up your own way of playing. I mean, you borrowed from the guys you looked up to.
Yeah.
But we're not talking. I mean, there was a jazz program in every school in this country. For a long time, it was just Berkeley and North Texas.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that we're talking about jazz music here, but the street scholar mentality. So many people feel like they have to do this, in music, and then they have to do this. There are these logical steps now.
Sure.
All right. Walbank, you were kind of at this tail end of what I call street scholar. You were not. You can't really codify. You can't really put it in a curriculum. I want you to talk about how you learned to be confident in being a self-taught guitar player and blues musician.
I think it came from the harmonica.
Why?
Because I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
There was no YouTube. There was no computers.
The hard way was in the back of that postal van, burning up in the heat.
Yeah. Or sitting at home with listening to a Muddy Waters Sonny Terry record, trying to work out, and then your girlfriend says, "Hey, you know that's in the wrong key." And you go, "What's a key?" It's that kind of development. It might take a year to learn the smallest thing, but it gets in your marrow. It gets in your bones.
Gets in the marrow.
So the foundation is strong. And my confidence was always bigger than my ability.
Well, that's really so you were talk about that.
I mean, I don't know if that's a specific harmonica player thing. It might be just because there's so many people who huff and puff and blow in the wrong key at a gig.
Right.
And I understand harmonica players because I am one. But I'll shut that down right quick.
But you also, it was confidence, but not also would you say fearlessness too?
Yeah, I wasn't conforming to the restrictions put on me by others, musicians or whatever. I would go into a music store and I would say, "Hey, yeah, I want to play guitar like, Son House." And they would go, "Oh, the primitive stuff." And then they would peel off for like arpeggiated, shredding blues solo. I was like, "Yeah, I learned that off so-and-so." And just the comment, "Oh, that primitive stuff."
Right.
Was like, "Oh, yeah? Well, fuck you."
Right, exactly.
Because that primitive stuff is my fucking stuff.
That's the burn right there.
And it's not primitive. It's the most sophisticated shit you'll ever hear if you understood how to play it.
Okay,
and what went into it.
Explain that, because what you're talking about is riffology and technique and monster blazing or non-feeling chops versus when they say primitive, they're talking about it's not overly complicated music, but that doesn't mean that it's not the most sophisticated music.
Right.
And I want you to talk about what makes that the highest art. Because even to me, it's an education. I mean, I listened to this cat mandolin player, Johnny Young. Nobody knows this guy.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, exactly, dude. I can't keep my foot from stomping. And he's got Richard Evans, was an incredible arranger on upright. This thing is so smoking hot.
Sure.
It's not indigenous, but it's acoustic. It's not amplified, and it's just from the primordial gut. So I want you to talk to the audience about. It's so important because there's still that elitist mentality.
Sure.
Okay. What makes it sophisticated? Because as Steve Gadd said to me, simple is not as simple as people think.
Yeah. And I'll to explain it, I'll have to simplify it, which is
absolutely, please. What gets you when you hear that word primitive? Not only is it a judgment and sort of looking down, but it's not. Why is it not?
Because you're dealing with like a specific American invention, and that's the blues. It's not. I could talk about the African influence. I could talk about the Native influence, all played on European instruments at this certain time. What went into it? It's after ragtime. It's after it's like there were black classical musicians before blues even came about, and it wouldn't have come about if people didn't think they could make money off it.
Right.
It would just be a raw music. And it wouldn't have developed the way it was if it hadn't coincided with the invention of records, where suddenly you could be influenced by this other guy in the Delta, but then all of a sudden you're listening to Blind Lemon Jefferson, from Texas, or something that's going on the East Coast, which is more influenced by Scottish or Irish fiddle players. It's a melting pot. It's the triumph of the 20th century, and it's still looked down on, even in the music industry, by jazz aficionados.
Absolutely.
It's like, that's the same. It's like, oh, that primitive shit. And it's like, you're talking about the most sophisticated development of African polyrhythms. It's the elasticity of time and the elasticity of rhythm. Time and rhythm. It's the microtonal elements that link Blind Willie Johnson's slide playing to a guzheng player from China. It's microtonal. It's the gaps between. It's the black keys. It's the gaps. I mean, you hit all the black keys, you're gonna get a Chinese melody.
Right.
You know, it's the culmination. It's playing your instrument as a drum. It's playing your instrument as a voice.
This is so the rural. I mean, listen, I've interviewed guys. You hear the stories about guys doing field recordings or going down to see Muddy, or you're giving him a bottle of whiskey, paying him $100, and
Sure.
he'll record something and things like that. In the bluegrass scene, what was interesting in just the mid '60s, there was like a folk aesthetic where you had to go through certain channels in order to be considered a folk musician. And then all of a sudden, you had these guys appearing hillbilly music, right? Who were scorching. I mean, they were just on fire, and they weren't necessarily, ivory tower. They weren't following some pedigree. And all of a sudden, it was decided, it was obvious that they were just as valid as anybody else who was following a curriculum.
Yeah.
Is it an invention, in your mind, the greatest American invention of the 20th century?
Along with jazz.
Right, we can get into that because jazz comes from blues. I mean, what time period are we talking about here? After ragtime, we're talking like 30s?
Well, the earliest blues records, the backing musicians were all jazz musicians.
Absolutely.
You had, because it was like the earliest jazz stars, blues stars were women. Your Bessie Smith, your Alberta Hunter. Yeah, first recorded blues, crazy blues. Mamie Smith.
Right, so that's 20s.
Yeah. And you've got Lonnie Johnson, you've got Louis Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
All these backing musicians are the cream of the jazz world.
Absolutely.
So
the invention is in the sense that I want to be clear about this. It was a distinct music genre. I hate that word genre, but it was a distinct genre that could become commodified.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it an invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be sold.
It could be sold. Right.
Yeah. And that's what allowed the art form to... If you've got someone who has nothing and they see a way out of the situation, and it's a viable way of making money to live, If you come from money, it's
Miles. It was funny. Miles came from money.
He was a middle class guy.
Miles's dad was a doctor. He sent him to Juilliard.
Sure.
Monk hated him for that. He could still play the blues.
Sure.
Right?
If you got the music inside you.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
San Francisco. The music is inside of you. Tell me about some of the haunts that you kind of just stepped into yourself and started to really find your voice of where you are today. I believe that because you were starting to play the guitar then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd learned a turnaround and a rhythm,
right?
Walking bass line, and 12 bars, and then I was off. That rhythm has such a history.
Beyond.
Yeah, that rhythm, I'm not sure if it was, you're talking about Lead Pencil Blues, which predates Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson,
Wow.
Sweet Home Chicago. That walking bass line. Everyone goes, yeah, that's Ground Zero. No, a couple of years before, there was Johnny Temple. They called a song called Lead Pencil Blues, and that was the first documented walking bass line, and that just knocked the doors open for, the line goes through
Right.
Jimmy Reed
Right.
to all the Yardbirds, all the English Invasion, the garage bands out of everyone's playing Jimmy Reed and everyone's doing this walking bass line. Yeah. But it was in the intro to Billy's Blues, Billie Holiday. And that, I'm not sure if that was a year before or the same year as Johnny Temple, but he's doing a walking bass line. He was like an Irish guy.
That's insane. You're saying it was documented, or you mean in a recording sense too?
Yeah.
But it's so funny how people just stop at the Robert John. There is something before that.
Yeah, there was Johnny Temple, but also, I'd have to kind of look it up.
Yeah.
But there was also like this white Irish cat.
Yeah.
He'd learned obviously from like an African American source, but it's like the first recorded was either Johnny Temple or Billie Holiday doing Billy's Blues. At the beginning there's the guitarist is doing a walking bass line. So it was obviously common. There was guys before both this guy and Billie Holiday's band and Johnny Temple. It was obviously a thing that people had been doing, or that was the new thing. It's like, oh, why don't we do this left hand of the piano thing and do it on the guitar?
Wow.
But that was. I just started learning. I'd been playing blues by then in San Francisco for, I don't know, 10 years. But as the singer and the harp player. So I had the confidence to do that. I hooked up with other guitarists, a guy called Dale Miller, who was on, he was one of those very finger-picking guys who was like real popular in the early 70s and late 60s.
Damn.
I think was it Kicking Mule? The
Absolutely.
label?
Kicking Mule Records.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dale Miller. Fantastic.
Anything from Arhoolie record?
I used to go there. Like El Cerrito, I would take just to look in the buy CDs.
Tell me that there was a couple of elders that you connected with from the, regardless of skin color. Were there cats still there in the early 90s that epitomized that rugged blues mentality?
Carlos Guitarlos.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that name.
He was
Carlos Guitarlos?
Yeah, he was a street guy.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, there's 2 guys. I can't remember the second guy's name, but
when it comes to you, let me know.
Yeah. Carlos Guitarlos. He played on one of the early Tom Waits albums.
Oh my gosh.
He was this guy who was in he was in this band that was name checked on a Van Halen album as being like the LA bar band. It's like Top Jimmy or Drop Dead.
So he's a known quantity.
Known quantity, but he was a street guy. He was living on the streets and he was playing guitar on the streets when I...
Holy shit.
And I would sit in with him and play harmonica. And he played dirty for a little amp, nasty. He would sell you tapes and they had nothing on them.
But dude, analog blank cassettes, dude.
But there was this other guy. I would have to look up his name.
No, we got to get to it.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah, please.
But I saw him on, I can't remember what street musician, playing guitar on his lap. His hand had been shot off or exploded by shrapnel in Vietnam, and he had his guitar lying on his lap and a sweatband on his stump with a slide on it. And
we need to get this cat's name immediately.
Yeah.
That is sick.
And he was playing. He had maybe a finger and a thumb on his hand, and he was playing on his lap. So it's like this with the stump and the slide, cranked up. His amp was cranked up, and he was ripping Santana stuff. He was just amazing. And I was like saying, if that man can do all that with a finger and a thumb and a stump,
and a slide.
I have no excuse not to go and buy a guitar right now. And I did, and I started playing. You know, I played like I think my first gig playing guitar was the Shotwell Bar in the Mission, and
Oh boy!
and I got halfway through the set, and a truck drove by and drove into like one of the electricity poles. So the electricity went out in the whole block.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? I was looking forward to this, and so we got candles out, and I did acoustic, and it was
mid-set, so you were already playing.
Yeah.
And then everything blew out, and
Yeah.
then you were like, I got to adapt.
Yeah, I mean, I'd read before about Son House at Carnegie Hall and the electrics going out and him not even being aware and just finishing the song because the song was the thing. It's what we were talking about before with the interview. It's like you finish the song because the song's the thing. You know, you're trying to get something of you to the audience and
Absolutely.
then something back from the audience. Energy. Communion. So, like, if something happens, that was the lesson. If something happens, keep going. I
I love that story.
Yeah.
Like, light the candles, and let's just keep, because it is about the feeling. It's about the song.
Yeah, I did a show. My biggest ever audience was the Saint Nazaire in France on the coast, and
Wow.
and there was a festival there, and the power went out on my last song, and there's like thousands of people in the audience. It's like a big show, and I was like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? So I started the Bo Diddley clap with the first 100 people, and we just got it going, and we just did that until the lights came back on.
Yeah, I'm telling you got to think it's just like, that is a beautiful story.
Oh, I was like, at the Rialto, I was opening up for Charlie Musselwhite or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, and it was midweek, and I was on stage, and
You seem to
I was
get
like-
the voltage so high that everything blows out,
Yeah, I mean, you're on stage in front of all those people. You're running on the edge. I can do a 45-minute set and be more tired on a big stage, playing to more people than a 4-hour gig at a restaurant or something like that.
Sure.
Because it's concentrated. You're entertaining. They're listening to every note. And I think I introduced it. So thanks for coming out midweek,
Yeah.
and supporting live music. So I'm so happy you could come out on a Tuesday. And then I realized it was Wednesday. And then in a heartbeat, I could hear the sharks circling the cut in the water. And from the audience, I heard, it's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday. And then people laughing, and I'm like, oh, I've just blown it. And I was like, fuck you guys.
That's right. Give me a break.
And then it's like, but they realized I was human by saying that. I just insulted them over the mic.
Oh, you did cuss him out.
Oh yeah.
Love it. Love it.
But they realize, you're trying to be nice over the mic. Thanks for coming out. And it's like you make a mistake, and it's like there's only
Just grief. It's just
some people in the audience pounce, and it's like, oh, I'm up here. Yeah, and it's like, well, fuck you.
Fuck you. I love that, because that's just like, but that's also like emboldening too, because people are like, okay, he's not, he's going to stand his ground, and he's going to sit in the mess, whatever it is.
Sure.
And he's not going to be moved. Yeah. And that's what I like about you, man. Like, I feel like you've been a studier of the music you love, and that your foundation is so strong that it's unmovable. You can't it's like it's up from the roots. And so the roots are really strong. And yet, what's remarkable to me is that, just bringing it into the modern time, you say you're lucky. I want you to talk about this idea of having this gig at Fontana Canyon.
Yeah.
Because that is the precarious nature of being a live musician. And I just kind of wanted you to talk about not even the humbleness and the gratitude of having that gig, but for those who are, there's a lot of darkness right now in a lot, I mean, just in general, but also with musicians, a lot of people that are playing original music just because they have so much inside of them and there is no roadmap right now. And I just wanted you to talk about taking the hits along the way, but how you've always landed on your feet, and give a little inspiration to those cats who maybe are in the dark right now.
Well, it's not. I mean, even the last 20 years, it's not been an easy time in the arts. Music is like sales of music.
Yeah, the Napster thing, like 2001, 25 years, yeah.
So people got it in their head that music should be free.
Free, that's right. Or did the bean counters get it in their head, right? I mean, at that point, it was like, sure, we're going to milk it for... Because I remember interviewing John Densmore back when I was at Arizona Public Media, and he was on Elektra. The Doors were on Elektra, okay, which was like a boutique label. And he goes, Jack Holtzman and those guys, you know, the bean counters were there, but they were making money, and so they didn't question the creative process.
Someone's always making money. Yeah.
You know, so that's when a lot of the music breathed because the musicians had creative control. Then it was like the bean counters came in and said, oh, music is not only being advertised now, you can get it for free, but let's even get involved with the creative process of it too. Sure. And anyway, continue. I didn't. So yeah. It hasn't been. We're not here just because of yesterday. We're here because of a couple decades of relentless inequality.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not a Prince or David Bowie getting signed for a 9-album deal anymore. It's like they've got
Harry
control.
Nielsen, a $12 million. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I'd love to take this opportunity to say fuck Spotify. You got to, if you're a musician, I mean, you know, that's the thing. It's like, well, you've got to play the game. You've got to play the game. You've got to do it all and blah, blah, blah. If you're a touring musician, the labels out there will only sniff around you if you've already made it. If you've already made it yourself.
Not within a band, just your name.
Solo or with a band.
Okay.
If you've been touring your ass off, if you've got your audience already and they see that, so until you don't need a record label anymore, that's exactly the time when the record label wants to get involved. You know, they're not going to take a chance on... I mean, it's funny. I do not... This isn't like false humbleness, but the kind of blues I play, it's not in vogue. It's like... And I'm not going to harsh on other blues players because, you know, they're playing music for a living. But it's not there's 100 years of different styles of blues.
Totally.
You know, my guys aren't the people running the industry are of the age where they grew up with Cream, Hendrix, blah, 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 blues rock.
Totally.
And blues rock's come back in different clothing. You know, it's been packaged a different way.
It's a formula trip now.
Yeah.
Less grease, and quite honestly, not enough primitive grease. It's way too... I don't know what the right word is, but I don't know. Again, it's just... It's for some reason, you know, that simplicity of it, whatever that word means, is... People... I just was going back to my interview with Larry Taylor from Canned Heat.
I've played with Larry before. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Dude,
I lent him my guitar for a show.
Because I mean, we did a seminal interview. I mean, I'll say it's one of the greatest interviews that I've ever done. And he was just talking about bassists in blues today. Their lines, they have a tendency to, instead of just going into the deep groove, they wind up feeling compelled, and this sort of goes to the blues rock thing, to get away from that, and then they overplay. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're in some different bag, right? You're not in the blues bag anymore at that point.
Silence is scary.
Exactly. And that's as big. That's as much music as anything else.
Yeah. Silence is really fucking scary.
Dynamics and silence,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff is haunting, and people are petrified of that shit.
Yeah.
And so they wind up just, the language is too heavy. It's
Yeah.
too much.
So if you got three
Yeah.
people in the band all playing what just the guitarist is playing, or maybe what just the bass player should be. If you're all playing the same thing, it's just like you just drag down any kind of momentum with predictability. It was like the '80s. Like all the album, all the blues was it's god awful. But not mentioning any labels, Alligator Records.
Yeah.
The music was recorded. Fucking hell, it was awful. All the albums sounded the same. They were all mixed by the bass players, so the bass was the loudest thing in the band, and it was lifeless. It
was
formulaic.
sterile.
I mean, being formulaic is not anything new. Chess Records, Bluebird Records, any of this thing. Find your formula if it sells. But I just didn't particularly.
Can I ask you about the idea of not that you were at Chess Records, but I've interviewed Phil Upchurch and Cash McCall and
Sure.
guys that came from sharecropper families, wound up walking up to Chess and getting it's magical shit.
Yeah.
Part of the formula. I mean, first of all, there wasn't really any formula to how to record a record, but Ron Malo, who you'll see is the engineer on a lot of Chess record recording, he used to, and I want to get your opinion on this because you talk about Alligator, by the 80s, there was a formula, especially as it related to miking. And to me, Malo used to mic the room before he brought the musicians. He would get the room sound. Then bring the musicians in, and if something needed a little bit of adjustment here at bass player, he would do that. But you wouldn't bring the musicians in and mic the room then. You wouldn't mic the musicians before you mic the room. And the other thing is that, just in general, when you are in a recording bag, the thing I can't stand about, and it started in the 80s, and those Alligator records are an example of it, but it goes across the board, they took away good leakage. There is such thing as good leakage.
Okay.
It's called room sound. That's what made any of those records burn because of that, I don't want to say silence, but it's this leakage. And I want you to talk, and just veering off for a minute.
It's like someone's giving me a license to talk about the shit that I like to talk about.
I'm glad, because
It's great.
that's what I get off on. And that goes to jazz, it goes to rock, it goes to blues.
Yeah. I mean, too much of a room sound, you'll get mud.
That's right.
Not enough.
That's right, I don't want to,
Not enough, and it'll sound artificial. You've got these wonderful plugins on digital in top end recording studios, which can emulate the sound of different reverb, and they've got algorithms, and they've got this and that. I guarantee you won't get a better sound than if I took you in my garage right now, my empty garage, and clapped your hands. That's the best reverb you got. And that's where I do a lot of recording, when I'm at the house.
Because it feels good and
Yeah.
it sounds honest.
Yeah, you're talking about Chess Records?
Yeah.
That Romalo?
Yeah. Malo, yeah.
Yeah.
Ron Malo, yeah. Unbelievable cat.
I believe he was the engineer on Muddy Waters' Folk Singer.
Everything.
Yeah. Which was Chess trying to make Muddy do a folk album, because that was what was hot at the time. And he was like, he'd been playing electric guitar since like late 40s.
Sure.
But that's what they tried to do.
Commercial, yeah.
Psychedelic album. You're talking about Upchurch.
Oh God, the electric mud. Yeah, those that drove those cats crazy. But more to the point, I want you to talk about the good leakage, the ability for the room sound to enhance the vibration of the album.
Yeah, it's what you want when presumably, if you're playing music, is to communicate with someone. I'm here in this room with you right now. Both our voices have different vibrations, which comes from our bodies being shaped different ways, our throats being shaped different ways. We have different sounding voice, but the commonality is we're both in the same space.
The minute I walked in, I said, "This is holy space." Yeah.
It's so if you can communicate that through record, you've got a direct way to people's ears and to their hearts and to the healing, to whatever you want to. You know, your music will go to the your listener, and they'll feel like they're in the same room with you.
Right.
It's different. People mix up. There was, I don't know what point it was, but mixed up. Getting rid of the room sound with the idea that it's not high fidelity.
That's right.
It's not. Okay, here's kind of blue. You know, here's all the blue note stuff. Yeah, single miking.
Single miking.
Yeah, I use my recording equipment.
Right.
Is in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
The voice memo on the iPhone.
Dude, I mean, it's legit.
It holds more information than the first digital albums by like Rakuda or Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits. Or the first, it has. If you don't have a super loud band, because you'll get mush. But if you got a 2-piece, I just recorded a bunch of stuff of Ventana is my plug for my new album.
Oh, a little like a live album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Sunday Blues. It's on Bandcamp.
Oh, that's great.
But one of my favorite blues records, a lot of them are live. It's like live on Maxwell Street.
Oh, come on. Who did that?
Dayron.
Otis Rush? I mean, these guys were ridiculous.
The guy who recorded it was a guy called Norman Dayron.
Dayron.
And it was for a documentary on Maxwell Street.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Yeah. Come on.
And all the street musicians on Maxwell Street.
Dude, it was
and
magic.
Got Robert Nighthawk. One of the most underrated blues players ever. He started off as one of my favorite harmonica players. He went by Robert Lee McCoy, and he would play for Big Joe and his Washboard Band.
Absolutely.
If you take me back, gonna treat you nice and kind. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. And he had like a fully developed individual style. And back then, there was some bad men playing harmonica.
On Maxwell Street?
No, I'm talking like when Robert Lee McCoy started off.
Oh my God.
Deford Bailey, or DeFord, however you want to pronounce it, Sonny Terry, these guys were absolutely incredible. The things they did rhythmically, because they had to top each other.
Right.
And they were cutting heads. This is before Little Walter got involved. Mm-hmm. This is before Sonny Boy.
That was I think that was Butterfield's hero, was Little Walter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. He was a giant.
Wow, so this predated them.
Yeah, this is back in the train imitation days.
Sure.
You're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just trying to fit in as many things that these cats did in one little piece, train piece. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot,
and a lot of the there's one final.
Sorry, missed one.
One question I have before we wrap is: can you talk about the first time that you as a band leader played with a trap drummer, and was that what are the antecedents for you for a blues trap drummer? I saw Dimitri play with you and Alassane at the Hotel Congress, even though it was just a snippet.
Yeah.
And he was like, it felt like where he was in the beat was right where he needed to be. He wasn't pushed. It wasn't on top of it. It was kind of behind the beat.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to talk about, because, I'm a jazz cat, and I'm not, Billy Cobham's a dear friend, and you look back at what he did with Mahavishnu, and it's just like, it's almost like from a different planet. You don't even know how the facility, he's playing he's playing left-handed on a right-hand kit. But for you, I couldn't ask a better person. Was there I don't want to say struggle, but what was the first time you played with a trap drummer? Was it an easy transition? And then, as with hindsight being 2020, and now that you're burning the gigs here up at Ventana Canyon, et cetera, what are the antecedents for being able to play good feeling blues trap drums?
When you say trap, you mean like a drum kit?
Like a kit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't say, it's got to be different for everyone, every band leader.
Absolutely.
It's like a guitar or an amp or a hat or a piece of clothing. You try it on, if it fits you, there you go. I was lucky, I met Dimitri Manos, and this is early when I moved to Tucson, 2001.
Wow.
We started playing back then.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
And
So that telepathy is locked in.
yeah. And I just there was other drummers around and other drummers who
But
played.
it was like a nice fitting jacket.
And other drummers that played with me, but they were all like maybe influenced by or other forms of music, and that's not blues. There were jazz drummers who played blues.
Sure.
But not all jazz drummers can play blues.
That's right.
Not all blues players can play jazz.
That's right.
I'm not saying it's like one's better than the other. Like rock drummers, get out of here. If you want to play blues, it's like, go listen to Slash's blues album. I'd rather listen to Charlie Watts. You know what I mean?
Dude, come on.
He plays all kinds.
So
of
what
stuff.
tell me what made Dimitri fit what was it about that style that just fit?
He understood like I said before, the
microtone, what were you saying?
Elasticity of time.
Now, break that down. I love that line, because some of the jazz I listen to, it's so bluesy and yet free at the same time, but it's that elasticity.
Yeah. The song I did,
Yeah.
You Got Trouble, that's one of mine. I stopped in that first,
Yes, I noticed that.
I stopped the rhythm.
Discernible
I
pause.
stop the rhythm, there's silence, and I do the bass note, which is it's that tolling thing is it's like a ringing of a bell or a drone. I love Indian music where it's just like one.
Oh, yeah.
Like the tempo sets and you don't need rhythm. It's like that, except take the tempo away. In your head, you're listening to the tempo you're setting for the song. So I've stopped the rhythm. But then, when you got trouble right here with me, I'm playing, what I like is when the guitar plays the same thing as the vocals. Like the same notes. Well, you got trouble right here with me. You're having a duet, and everyone did that from Mississippi Fred McDowell to B.B. King.
I can't believe you just dropped it. I just wanted to say there's this great album, Mississippi Fred McDowell album. I don't know if you have it, but I'm going to have to get it to you. It's a piece of like medium rare steak on the cover with a fork and knife.
Yeah.
Dude. Zoot Sims is on the album. Dizzy Gillespie's on the album. That's how much respect they had for him. Dude, it's called It's called Well Done or Medium Rare. I can't. Dude, I have it. It is. Anyway, the point is that these cats, someone like Dizzy, someone would say that when he brought Chano Pozo over from Cuba and incorporated him into the band, and you had these Afro-Cuban rhythms going on, that in jazz, that was really the first fusion music, not Weather Report or Return to Forever and those cats. It's going back 40. But when you have someone...
Machito.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you have these jazz masters like Dizzy who just had profound knowledge of rhythm and then for him to just go back to the root, to the root of it all, it is so profound. And I think you know this because you've been dealing with it. It's so easily dismissed. The music you love that you wear as your soul tattoo is so dismissed because it's so complex. And it doesn't. But yet, because if you can listen, if you don't play it authentically, it could sound like a mess.
Sure.
But if you have honed your skill, and you have that, you can access the primordial gut or the soul. You go from so much blues. You can't play blues in a thinking mindset, and you can't play blues in the heart.
Right.
You got to play blues down here.
Right.
That's what I want to talk. Yeah, tell me about accessing the primordial gut, because that to me is what it's all. I don't care if you hit 5 clams.
Yeah.
If you're hitting from there, that's the blues.
Yeah. I starting off on one instrument, the harmonica, I had interests in not just blues, but also blues that came on pop records. Because in the 80s in England, there was a lot of harmonica. Everything from Karma Chameleon to Talk Talk, the. There was a handful of guys, and they were all session guys in the UK, and they all pretty much came from the Charlie McCoy school of playing.
Favorite dude, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow! I can't believe you just dropped that, man.
Yeah, he's country. He doesn't get a lot.
He's Nashville cat.
Yeah.
But he's the nastiest dude, man.
But he plays a certain way. He had already established a vocabulary for playing with country music or playing with Elvis or playing with anyone. He played so many. I don't want to start talking about Charlie.
It's all right. You're going off.
But a lot of these guys, like Mark Feltham, who was the big session guy, grew up playing country music, and these Charlie McCoy licks specifically. So I would hear like Living in Another World by Talk Talk has this harmonica break and straight up Charlie McCoy. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a guy called Rory McLeod who's a folk musician, but just the most amazing harmonica player.
So now I want to go back to this though. On pop records, you were picking up the authentic blues harp.
I was picking up authentic country.
Wow.
So, but then also I was loving East Coast. I'm not going to call it Piedmont because Phil's up there looking at me.
He's looking right at you.
Yeah. It's dance music, East Coast dance music. That's what the blues job was over there. But blues music from the East Coast, like more ragtime influence. There's all kinds of influences from polyrhythmic things coming from Africa. The good time music coming from Scotland and Ireland on the fiddle. Different stuff makes you want to get up and move.
Dude, let the body dance.
But it's the rhythm.
Yeah.
It was the rhythm that attracted me. It's like the common thing was like a lot of these harp players that influenced me were just all about the rhythm and creating polyrhythms. And, if I'm going like... just keeping time has got to be the thing that attracted me. So I might be playing something simple, rhythmic wise. The drums might be doing the same, but we're playing with each other. I can play half. I can sing, or I can play harmonica, or I can play a solo. Twice the speed of the song, or twice as slow. I can drag it fast. I can then automatically drag it slow. I can get back on track, and that's what makes it funky. That's what the commonality between Hill Country Blues and James Brown.
Absolutely.
And house music.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like
Nailed it.
you're on the one.
Right.
So like a lot of people dancing, a lot of kids dancing to electronic dance music in raves full of thousands of people or big concerts. It's like that music's black music originally. You know, house music. It's like, and that's coming from the one, which is coming from funk, which is coming from blues, which is coming from Africa. There's a link, you know what I mean? It's like, but
the lineage, yeah.
But if you say you're into one kind of music, it's like, and you don't like another kind of music, it's like, well, you kind of just shot yourself in the foot there, because there might be something that you find a commonality in. Anyway.
Tom Walbank, man, we just cooked for like 61 minutes. This was like, and I'm glad I gave you permission to talk about everything that you wanted to talk about, because I do feel, like I told you before, you know, so much of my show, 13 years now, is there are these moments of inspiration along the way, which validates what I'm doing. But so much of what I want to, what I'm doing now, I want to leave long after I've left this planet.
Right.
And that's what I feel you're doing too. You are an integral part of indigenous blues music, because you have made it a solemn journey and the purpose of your life. And I just feel like, regardless of the music that people are playing, you know, to see you and Alasan, I'm like, boy, I'd love to see Walbank in like this funk R&B group. You know, I want to see you like in other. Part of me feels like, I guess before we wrap, is there one thing? Where do you feel like you need to push yourself the most in order to grow musically right now? Part of me has this, you know, like you fill in the blanks. It could be personal. It could be professional. Like you said, you're always learning. But being that you're not wet behind the ears anymore, and I'm just curious about where you know you need to push yourself in order to grow.
Well, that's not artistically and commercially, two different ways you could interpret that thing. Commercially, inside me, I'm laughing because of the kind of music I play, unless it comes around again. I played like Delta-inspired blues. There's not people knocking on my door. I'm glad to be employed, and I do realize that I'm at a certain level of my craft.
And recognition. I mean, regardless, you are, I mean, you're cutting above, there isn't, and you're not doing it, you're not wanking it, man. Like, you're doing it for the right reasons. That's the point. And that's how you break above. So, yeah, they're not knocking on your door because you're not, they can't put you in a box.
Yeah. But that, I mean, I do need to make a living. So I need to push that forward, get the gigs.
A little more commercialized Walbank.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to come out on stage dressed like Sun Ra.
Dude, no, that's what we need, dude. A little Wurlitzer, you know.
Funkadelic. Yeah. Walbank's in his diaper again.
Oh, here we go. Clinton P-Funk, dude. Yeah.
But, that's just...
Some sort of move, a little bit close, something moving towards it, just so you can sing for yourself or support your family.
Artistically, that's a different thing.
Talk about that.
Double down on the people I love.
Wow.
You know, the ingredients. And there's so many, but I'm still doing it. Recently, I still come back to Muddy Waters. What he does while he's singing, how he's playing while he's singing, at which point in his career. Because, you know, he'll change from open G to the late 50s. In the 60s, he's gone to regular tuning. And he's playing the same solos, slightly different on the slide, but it's sounding different because it's in regular tuning. So I had to learn how he played slide in the 60s and 70s and then transpose it back to open G.
Wow.
And I do that with other players. Like if I want to, like a Lightning Hopkins turnaround, I got to transpose it to open G. So you know. Or you know, like or singing over the 4 instead of the 1. Different things.
But you're doubling down.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, you're going to continue to go back to the sources that and because the permutations. I'm just wondering if Muddy did that in some way to sell more records. I don't know. You know, like I mean, you just popped into my head about the commerciality of it. Not that he ever sold out.
I think he got interested in standard tuning.
What I'm saying is standard. Just that word standard. Yeah.
You know, he was when he moved to Chicago. You know, like 45, 46. There was guys who was teaching him the basics of standard tuning, and he got good.
Right.
You know, even people like Little Walter learned a bit of guitar and could play. But like Muddy, he was like he was looking around. It's like, well, everyone's playing standard tuning here, and also you don't want one guitar tuned in open G, one guitar in standard because it's heavy. You know, so you choose one, you set your allegiances, and it was viewed as country. And he moved up to the city and wanted to be viewed as like
the open tuning was considered rural.
Yeah,
right. So he wanted to fit in more to the urban jungle.
Yeah.
And just sort of, you know, God, that's a whole other bag.
I mean, he portrayed, you know, he was like, and up until the 70s, you know, he was slick. He was like, you know, even the 60s with a big pompadour and the shiny suit. You know, he was a sharp dressed man. He was Muddy Waters. You know, he portrayed a certain thing. He put forth a certain thing with it, and with the Willie Dixon lyrics that helped a lot. Willie Dixon was just he was his lyric.
Well, I'm gonna make this problem in a couple months. I'm gonna come up or find a time. We're gonna do set 2 and do a whole breakdown of Chicago blues and continue. It's real. Your knowledge of it is essential. It's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. I'm fascinated by it, but like we have more to do.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that you were talking about the Latin influence on jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
Dizzy Gillespie.
Yeah.
Bo Diddley. It's a clave beat. Ba 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 ba. You know, that's the Latin influence right there. That was huge in the 50s, and there was rumbas and stuff like that. It was like hitting jazz and blues as well.
It was that he just pops into your mind. Anyway, Tom Walbank.
We can talk.
Yo, man. Honestly, no. This is why you raised the vibration today, man.
Right on, man.
And I can't thank you enough, man.
Oh, man.
So good to see you, brother.
It's such a privilege to be able to talk about this music. So, if I do get the opportunity, I just love talking about it, you know. So
we'll do it again.
Right on, man.
All right. This is the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake.
I'll see you later.